the dead of winter. The days are short, the nights are long, and the world is buried under a blanket of silent, muffling snow. It's a time that feels both beautiful and deeply unsettling. While many of us are cozy inside, history is filled with chilling tales that unfold against this stark, frozen backdrop. Tonight, we read diving into 3 true horror stories that prove the coldest season can also be the most terrifying. Our first story takes us to the infamous Donner Party expedition of 1846, a group of American pioneers. Full of hope and dreams of a new life in California, took a supposed shortcut through the Sierra Nevada mountains. This fateful decision led them directly into the path of an early, brutal winter. Trapped by impossibly deep snow, their supplies dwindled with horrifying speed. What started as a journey of hope descended into a nightmare of starvation and desperation. The survivors faced unimaginable choices that have haunted the annals of American history ever since. The pristine white snow became a witness to the darkest aspects of human survival, a chilling reminder of how quickly civilization can break down when pushed to its absolute limit. Next, we travel to the Ural Mountains in 1959 for the Dyatlov Pass incident. 9 experienced Soviet hikers set out on a challenging winter expedition. They never returned. When a search party finally found their campsite, what they discovered was baffling and deeply disturbing. The tent was sliced open from the inside, and the hikers' bodies were found scattered across the snowy landscape, some nearly a mile away. Strangely, they were improperly dressed for the extreme cold, some even barefoot. Several had sustained horrific internal injuries, like those from a powerful car crash, yet showed no external signs of trauma. What could have caused these seasoned hikers to flee their only shelter in a panic into the freezing darkness? Was it an avalanche, a secret military test, or something else entirely? To this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most chilling and unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. Our final tale comes from the desolate wilderness of the Canadian North. The legend of the Wendigo is an ancient and terrifying story passed down through Algonquin-speaking peoples. This malevolent spirit is said to haunt the coldest, most isolated forests, preying on those who get lost or are weakened by hunger. The Wendigo is associated with winter, starvation, and an insatiable desire for human flesh. It represents the ultimate horror of being alone and desperate in a vast, unforgiving landscape. While many consider it folklore, there have been historical accounts of individuals who, driven mad by isolation and extreme hunger during brutal winters, were believed to have been possessed by the Wendigo spirit, leading them to commit unspeakable acts. It says a story that blurs the line between myth and the very real psychological horrors of winter survival. From the snow-choked mountains of the Sierra Nevada to the eerie silence of the Urals and the haunted forests of Canada, these stories remind us that winter's beauty can hide a terrifying, deadly edge. The cold doesn't just chill your bones, it can chill your very soul. Thanks for watching. If you found these stories as unsettling as I did, make sure to like and subscribe for more dives into the darkness. Stay warm and stay safe. The winter of 1993 was one of the coldest on record in my small hometown. Snow blanketed everything in a thick, sound-dampening layer, making the world feel both peaceful and eerily isolated. I was just a kid, maybe 10 years old, and my world was our old farmhouse at the end of a long, winding dirt road. My dad was a long-haul trucker, often gone for weeks at a time, leaving me, my mom, and my older sister, Sarah, alone. One Tuesday night, a massive blizzard hit. The wind howled like a wounded animal, and snow piled up against our doors and windows, sealing us in. Around midnight, the power went out. Mom lit some candles, and we huddled together in the living room, listening to the storm rage outside. That's when we heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap. It was coming from the kitchen window. Sarah and I froze, looking at Mom. Her face was pale in the flickering candlelight. "It's just a branch hitting the glass," she said, but her voice was tight. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate. It didn't sound like a branch, it sounded like a finger. A very cold finger. Mom stood up, grabbing the heavy cast-iron skillet from the hearth. She crept towards the kitchen, with Sarah and me trailing nervously behind her. The tapping stopped the moment she entered the kitchen. We held our breath, staring at the window. It was a sheet of white frost and snow, impossible to see through. Mom slowly approached, peering at the glass. Nothing. Just the wind whistling. She let out a shaky breath and managed a weak smile. See, it's nothing to worry about. We all felt a bit silly and headed back to the living room. But the feeling of being watched just wouldn't go away. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a pristine, white landscape. Dad had called from a truck stop, saying he was snowed in and wouldn't be home for another day. After breakfast, Sarah and I went outside to build a snowman. As we were rolling a giant ball of snow near the back of the house, I noticed something odd. There was a single set of footprints leading from the edge of the woods right up to our kitchen window, but there were no footprints leading away. I called Sarah over. We stared at the tracks in the snow. They were from large boots sunk deep, as if from a heavy person. They just stopped. Right under the window where we'd heard the tapping. It was like whoever was standing there had simply vanished into thin air. We ran inside and told Mom. She came out, took one look at the footprints, and her face went ashen. She herded us back inside and locked every single door and window, even though it was broad daylight. She refused to let us go outside for the rest of the day. We never talked about what we saw. When Dad finally got home, the snow had melted just enough to obscure the prints. Life went on, but I've never forgotten those footprints. The person who stood outside our window in the middle of a blizzard, tapping on the glass. Where did they go? And more importantly, what did they want? Some nights, when the wind blows just right, I can still hear that faint tapping, and a chill runs down my spine that has nothing to do with the cold. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. The winter of 1992 in the Sierra Nevada mountains was brutal. But for the 5 men from Yuba City, it was supposed to be a fun escape. Gary Mathias, Jack Madruga, Jackie Hoot, Ted Wehar, and Bill Sterling, all friends with mild intellectual or psychiatric conditions, piled into Jack's 1969 Mercury Montego. They were headed to a college basketball game in Chico, about 50 miles away. After the game, they stopped at a local market for snacks and drinks, then vanished into the cold, dark night. Their disappearance sparked a massive search, but heavy snows blanketed the mountains, making it impossible. The men, their car, everything was gone. The families were frantic. Why would they drive up a winding, treacherous mountain road in a blizzard, a route they had no reason to take? The mystery deepened with each passing day. The public called them the Yuba County Five, and their story became a chilling local legend. Months later, as the snow began to melt in June, a forest ranger stumbled upon Jack Madruga's abandoned Montego. It was stuck in a snowdrift on a remote, unpaved logging road, nearly 70 miles from Chico and high up in the Plumas National Forest. The car was unlocked, a window rolled down, and the snacks from the market were still inside. The gas tank had a quarter of a tank left, more than enough to turn around or run the heater. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of the men. It was as if they had simply walked away from a perfectly good car into a deadly blizzard. The discovery of the car only led to more questions. Police were baffled. Why abandon the car? Where did they go? The search intensified in the surrounding wilderness. Soon after, about 11 miles from the car, searchers found a Forest Service trailer. The door had been broken into. Inside, they found the emaciated body of Ted Wehar. He was wrapped in 8 sheets, a makeshift shroud against the cold. His shoes were gone, and his feet were severely frostbitten. Bizarrely, his watch and wallet were on a table beside him. Even stranger was what they found in the trailer. There was a stockpile of rations and canned food in a storage shed just outside, enough to feed all 5 men for a year. But only a few cans inside the trailer had been opened, and poorly at that. With a can opener they clearly struggled to use. A fireplace was available, with plenty of matches and books to use as kindling, but no fire had been set. It seemed Ted had starved to death in a shelter full of food and warmth. It just didn't make any sense. Over the next few days, remains of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga were found scattered by animals several miles from the trailer. It looked like they had tried to walk back towards the main road, but succumbed to the elements. A few days later, Jackie Hoot's bones were found near the trailer. His own shoes were found next to Ted Whitehair's body inside. Of the 5th man, Gary Mathias, only his tennis shoes were found inside the trailer. His body has never been recovered. To this day, no one knows why the Yuba County 5 drove up that mountain road. Was someone else with them? Did they see something that made them flee their car? Why didn't they use the resources in the trailer to survive? Gary Mathias had a history of schizophrenia, but his family insisted he was stable on his medication. Did he have an episode that led them all into the wilderness? Or was something far more sinister at play that night? The case remains open. A haunting story of 5 friends who drove off to a basketball game and ended up in a winter nightmare from which they would never wake up. The silent, snowy woods of the Sierra Nevada hold their secrets tight. Thank you for watching.